My name is Nigel Topham. I'm Director of the Informatics Graduate School at Edinburgh University. And what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is to try to give you an overview of what postgraduate research is like here, and probably in many ways is similar to PhD research elsewhere. But I'm going to try and give you some specific reference to research in informatics. Before I start, just want to highlight that there are three kinds of research degrees that you can apply to with us. These are a Master's by Research, or MScR, as we shorten it to. There's PhD degrees, generic PhD degrees. And then there's a PhD with integrated study, which takes place in one of our centres for doctoral training. So this talk covers primarily the general research degree topics and PhD topics in particular. And there are some separate talks occurring later today, tomorrow, and on Thursday for each of our CDT programs. And my colleague Sophie, who will be giving a talk after me, will tell you about when these other talks are going to take place. So let's begin by talking about what is a PhD. In fact, in general, what is a research degree? Perhaps the best way to describe it is as a journey involving discovery and training and gaining research experience over a number of years. And at the end of this, you will be a researcher capable of driving your own independent research, leading to new innovations and new knowledge. This sounds perhaps a bit daunting, but it happens over a period of 3.5, perhaps up to 4 years. And you won't be alone in this. There'll be a team of supervisors and other researchers around you helping you along the way. The whole process begins really with training in how to be a researcher. There are lots of training courses that you can attend, and your supervisor will be guiding you at the beginning in how to learn how to do research in a university context. What is research? Well, it's really about pushing the boundaries and extending knowledge. So the first step, of course, is to learn where are those boundaries, which usually involves an extensive literature review, a literature survey to find out what the boundaries are for the field in which you are working. And gradually, over a period of months, you will then evolve into a researcher who has the skills and the knowledge to make a contribution. And along the way, you'll learn how to communicate your results by presenting your results to your supervisor, within your research group, eventually to a wider community when you eventually present papers at conferences, which many of our students do. You'll probably have done some kind of significant project in your final degree, project in your final year, perhaps of your undergraduate project or a master's course if you've already taken one. In many ways, a PhD is somewhat similar, but it is significantly longer. It allows you to go into much greater depth, and one of the key differences of doing a postgraduate research degree is that the responsibility for managing that research activity belongs to you. That also means that the satisfaction of driving the project forward also it comes to you as well. Why might you want to do a PhD? Whenever I think about this, I'm always kind of taken back to the time when I was thinking about whether I was going to do a PhD, quite a long time ago now, more than 40 years. And many of the points on this slide were relevant even then. I was interested in advancing knowledge. I didn't really know how to do it. But I figured that by doing a PhD, that was probably a good way to start. I think probably, like many people who embark on a PhD, the key motivator really is curiosity. If you're a curious person, you want to know how things work, how things can be made better. That's the kind of person who's probably going to do quite well as a research student. You also need to have a passion for your subject. you'll be spending a lot of time, several years, working on the same topic. You really need to care deeply about it in order to provide that motivation for continuing, perhaps even when times are tough. PhD can also lead to improved job prospects. Many people with a PhD will go on to senior positions, either in research labs or perhaps if they are entrepreneurially minded, they may be starting companies and working in new areas. So it provides a number of different outlets for careers afterwards. I have to say it is challenging. There are 3+ years of sustained work, and success, although not guaranteed, is almost always the case for most students, and failure is rare. And the reason for that really is that it takes place over 3.5 years, so there is time to adapt if things don't go well. It is a research project that you'll be doing, and research is unpredictable. So let's have a little look at what might be involved in actually doing a PhD. First of all, the PhD study is a research apprenticeship, so that means it's really about learning how to become an independent researcher. This involves some work, which is obviously challenging, but as I mentioned earlier, you won't be alone. All research students have a supervisory team, which involves a primary supervisor, the person you'll probably go to on a day-to-day basis to talk about your research and to get most of your guidance from. But all students also have an assistant supervisor or second supervisor, and they often also have related experience and related expertise. Most students also work within a larger research group, which might contain postdoctoral researchers, other PhD students, and other academic staff, with whom you can discuss your work, you can present papers, you can talk in a wider setting about what you're doing, and obtain feedback from them and some guidance as well. Every student, every research student in the School of Informatics is a member of one of the research institutes. We have 6 research institutes in the school. Some students are also members of one of the Centres for Doctoral Training if they are on one of the CDT programs, these PhDs with integrated study. The kind of wider community provides access for seminars, in some cases funding for traveling to conferences, visiting other research establishments, and there are activities around the PhD that provide that kind of richness of an environment that is so valuable for researchers. So I'm just going to quickly go through a typical timeline of activities over a number of years for a PhD student. Note that things will be different if you are on one of our Centres for Doctoral Training programs, the PhDs with integrated study. They have a different timeline. So if you're interested in one of those or several of those, please go along to the talks. Those talks will go into a bit more detail about what the timelines are for each of the individual CDT programs. But for a PhD, it's officially a 3-year program with funding for 3.5 years and a maximum of 4 years to complete the PhD. In the first year, when you start, you'll have some knowledge of your research area, but you'll need to extend that by reviewing the literature. This is going to give you hopefully a good understanding of what is the state of the art in your chosen area. Also, in doing the literature review, you'll probably influence the direction that your research takes. Many people find they have some ideas about what they would like to do when they start and before they start. But then during the first few months, you will probably evolve those ideas, and in discussions with your supervisor, you'll identify the initial direction that your research will take, which might be a little bit different from what you envisaged at the beginning. During this time, you'll develop a plan for your research work, again, in consultation with a supervisor, and you'll start working on your plan. Then you'll start to do some research. You'll build some infrastructure that allow you to do some experimentation, start to get some results, probably during your first year. And of course, that's going to influence the direction you take in your second year. Of course, research is inherently unpredictable. That's just in the nature of the topic. If we knew the outcome, it wouldn't be research. And so it's somewhat unpredictable, and therefore plans are always adaptable. I guess this is why research is exciting for those of us who work in academia. We don't exactly know where it's going to go. And it's really why having a sense of curiosity is essential. Most PhD projects actually involve 3 pieces of work, a bit like a classical concerto is split into 3 movements. And together these form a unified body of research that will address the overarching theme of the PhD. Most PhDs typically aim to publish a research paper on each of these pieces of work, or at least are able to identify a research publication that could be produced from each piece of work, even if there isn't sufficient time during the 3 years to get each of these published. The idea behind publishing the work is that it establishes the novelty of the work. If you're able to publish something, it must be novel. And novelty is a requirement of the PhD. It has to be said that many students might struggle to publish their first paper, and it might not happen in the first 2 years. That doesn't mean it's a failure, and indeed there are PhDs that have been passed very successfully and been very successful PhD projects without any publications at all. It's not a requirement, but it's something that most PhD students will try to do because it obviously helps in terms of items that can go into a CV and so on. Towards the end of the PhD project, when everything starts to come together, you write up your thesis, and you will have an oral thesis exam, which is also known as a viva. By this time, you'll be pretty much an expert in your area. And for many students, you might even be more of an expert in the very precise area that you're focused on than your supervisor. What else could you expect to be doing as a PhD student besides your research project? Well, you will probably be practicing presenting your research. This will be internally within your group, within your institute, and within the school in general. Giving talks, presenting papers externally, perhaps going to workshops and conferences. You may also broaden your knowledge by attending seminars, maybe taking some MSc courses. If you find interest in those, we have a very large number of courses that we teach. Depending on your subject area and guidance from your supervisor, you may attend summer schools. And a large an important part of the school in general, and also being a PhD student, for those who are interested, teaching is a topic that we're interested in as well. So, for example, you might learn how to teach by taking some of our courses in learning how to teach undergraduate courses, and get involved in giving tutorials and other kinds of teaching assistant, maybe supervising in laboratory sessions. It's even possible to take some training courses and get qualifications in teaching as well. So if you're planning to go on to work as an academic, that might be something you wish to consider as well. We have lots of transferable skills training opportunities, presentation skills, management skills, entrepreneurial skills, to name but a few. So there are plenty of courses, and there is a timeline of courses that we expect PhD students to take, as well as a wider group of courses that are optional. Many of our students, probably actually an increasing number of students, take an internship for a few months during their PhD. Mostly these are industry internships, but occasionally they are to other university labs. And actually internships are integral to some of our CDT programs now. So we actively encourage this, and most students who do it find that it's a valuable adjunct to their PhD. What kind of career options might you expect after completing a PhD? There are several possibilities here. Traditionally, you might think of gaining a PhD as being a stepping stone to an academic position or a university research position. Many of our PhD graduates go on to do a postdoctoral position in another university, or indeed in the same research group sometimes. And some go on to academic positions. There are also lots of opportunities in corporate research, that is usually these days for our graduates in the high-tech sector. Perhaps around 30% of our postgraduate research students' first jobs after graduating would be in the academic sector. So that means the vast majority are actually working in industry or establishing a startup company, which is increasingly common these days. There are also consultancy firms, government research labs that are obviously very likely places where you might consider working. I think in general, our PhD graduates are highly sought after. What's it like to be a PhD student in our school? Well, I guess I can tell you what I think it's like. It's probably best to ask a PhD student these days. But the key thing is that among all of the different constituencies of people in our school, from first-year undergraduates all the way through to fifth-year undergraduates, and academic staff and research staff, that the largest such constituency in the school is actually the PhD students themselves. So close to 600 students from 67 different countries, a very diverse group of people, actually reflecting the diversity that we have within the school itself, to be honest. It's also worth saying that PhD students make not only a huge contribution to their own future careers, but a huge contribution to the life of the school. And in many cases, making significant contributions to the research output of the school. So if you were to look at the research papers that are submitted to the occasional research evaluation exercises that the government put together, many of those research papers are co-authored by PhD students, and some are first authored by PhD students. So we have a strong and thriving community, lots of social activities that are organized by PhD students, a huge range of opportunities to get involved in beyond direct study, which is certainly helped by the fact that the university is located in Edinburgh, which is a huge cultural centre and a wonderful city to live in. I think it's true to say that most students who arrive in Edinburgh enjoy their time here, and many actually stay just because the city is so wonderful. I personally have been in the university for a long time. I left Edinburgh twice and returned in both cases. It's a very strong pull. How do you get a place and get funding? I suppose that's a key question on many people's minds. Well, technically you need to have at least a 2-1 honours degree or the equivalent thereof. Although in practice, you probably find that obtaining a first-class degree, or if you're taking an MSc at the moment, a taught MSc program, then an MSc with distinction would be probably a bit more realistic. We expect to admit probably between 120 and 130 new PhD or postgraduate research students every year. We're likely to be able to fund approximately 45 of those places. Actually, that number may be a little bit higher this year. There's maybe a little bit of uncertainty about exactly how many will be fundable. That will be discovered probably in the next couple of months as the applications arrive and as we confirm the funding from a number of sources. Probably around about 10 to 12 students recruited into each of the CDTs, and there are 4 CDTs, and they will all be funded places. So that's already probably in excess of 45. So, Centres for Doctoral Training, first of all, to say about EU and overseas students, having your own national funding helps enormously. So also be aware of any scholarships that you can apply for, and make sure you apply in good time. Have a look at the scholarships that we have available, but also look for scholarships that are from other sources, maybe from your own, if you're overseas students, from your own governments or government agencies, as well as those that you might be able to find here at the university. There's a link there to the postgraduate research website in the School of Informatics, where you can find more information on the programs themselves, and also there are links onwards to pages that talk about funding, which you can also have a look at. Okay, we do have scholarships for 2025 entry. Funding is somewhat limited, so we have more people applying than we have places that we can fund. So funding isn't guaranteed, but I think we are very well placed compared with other comparable universities. So I would strongly encourage you to have a look at the research programs that we have and talk to supervisors, potential supervisors, about the research you're interested in, and do talk to them at an early stage about the funding that may be available that they are aware of. For example, many supervisors have their own research grants through which PhD studentships could be funded. Not all, but many. These are likely to be related in some way to a very specific topic. So they may have a research grant in a particular area and wish to recruit PhD students to work in that area. So if there's an alignment between your interests and the subject area of that research grant, then there's a good chance you would be able to be in the running for that funding. There are others that are very generic. For example, funding from the UK government and the UK research councils is rather generic. Funding for CDTs is specific to the subject area of the CDT, and so on. So please be aware of these differences, and you'll find all of the information you need on our websites and the websites that relate to those CDTs. So my colleague Sophie is going to be telling you a lot more detail about applying, but just sort of some headlines here about the process of applying. Applying for a PhD is very different from applying for, well, I should say, applying for a postgraduate research degree in general is very different from applying for a taught program in university. The key difference is that for a research degree, there's going to be a fairly close working relationship between yourself and your supervisor, and therefore it's really important that you actively search for a potential supervisor or supervisors if you're casting the net a bit wider, which I would always recommend, and make contact with them, probably initially by email, and tell them what you're interested in and ask them if they are interested in supervising somebody in that area in the coming year. And from that initial contact, if there's a positive response, you might find that they may have some suggestions about how you formulate your research proposal. And during this initial discussion, it should then become apparent whether there is a route forward. You know, is it likely that they would potentially be your supervisor? And if that's the case, then submit a formal application online. That formal application will obviously contain various details about your background and your previous degrees, but most importantly, it contains a research proposal. So this is a short document that will explain what research you hope to do and how you hope to do it, and why it's an interesting research project. Essentially, if you're curious about a particular research area, that's going to determine what kind of research proposal you come up with. But do discuss it with a potential supervisor, because they may say to you, actually, that research has already been done, but maybe you'd like to look at this instead. So that kind of interaction you'll probably find quite useful in your discussions with the supervisor. You'll need 2 academic referees, and you can, for most of the programs, submit an application already. I would strongly encourage that you submit your applications as early as possible so that you can be considered for any funding competitions at the earliest possible opportunity. It can take some time to get a result back, so please do be patient. Okay, so there are some key dates to remember for the application deadlines for those hoping to enter in 2025. Most of our new postgraduate research students arrive in September, so it could be September 25. It is possible to start at other times, but the vast majority of students start in September because that aligns nicely with the start of some of the training courses and some of the MSc courses. The CDT application deadlines are each specific to the CDT. So here on the slide, you can see the deadlines for, first of all, the AI biomedical innovation, which is the 20th of January, the AI CDT in responsible and trustworthy in the world natural language processing, 9th of January, dependable and deployable AI for robotics. Applications will open early in 2025, so they're not open just yet. And a new CDT that we're starting in 2025 in quantum informatics, the applications will open in November, and the deadline there is 15th of January. Machine learning systems is deadline of there 22nd of January. For those who want to make a generic PhD application not aligned to a CDT, the deadlines are really deadlines related to scholarship applications. So for PhD scholarships that are awarded within the school, there are 2 rounds of submission there, each with separate deadlines. First round of applications have a deadline of 25th of November, and the second round of applications have a deadline of the 17th of February. If you can meet the first deadline, I would strongly recommend trying to do that. And again, there's a web link there, which you can follow to get more information on these application deadlines and the procedures. So I just want to spend a few minutes giving you a quick overview of the CDTs and institutes that we have here in the School of Informatics. So as I mentioned, we have 6 different research institutes. Institute for Adaptive and Neural Computation, which deals with anything related to neuroinformatics, machine learning of the brain. We have the Artificial Intelligence and its Applications Institute, which focuses on planning, proofs, security engineering, and the other topics that are listed on the slide, which I won't read out. We have ICSA, the Institute for Computing Systems Architecture, which I'm a member, which focuses on computer systems, parallel computing, microarchitecture, networking, wireless protocols, compilation, and so on. And we have a Robotics Institute, which is IPAB, the Institute for Perception, Action, and Behavior. If you're interested in theoretical topics in computer science, LFCS will be the one for you. That's the Laboratory for the Foundations of Computer Science. It focuses on databases, languages, semantics, complexity, software engineering, and so on. And then actually the largest institute in the school is the Institute for Language Cognition and Computation, which focuses, as I said, primarily on language, natural language processing, multimodal interaction, information extraction, and speech synthesis. So that's quite a collection, and it's very broad. And one of the beauties of working in such a large school, we are the largest School of Informatics or Computer Science in the UK. One of the beauties of working in such a large organization is that there are experts around us who are in such a broad set of areas. So if I'm interested in something to do with theory, I can easily find somebody to talk to about that. Likewise, someone who's interested in neuroinformatics or machine learning will probably find people in pretty much every one of these institutes who has an interest in that area. There are also plenty of linkages between informatics research and other topics. And here on the screen, you can see a depiction of that, naturally showing informatics as the center of the universe with all of the other subjects arrayed around it. But you can see that there are links with engineering, mathematics, physics, geosciences, and then obviously some very strong links now with our new CDT in biomedical innovation with medicine and the medics, but also on the natural language processing side with philosophy, language sciences, social and political sciences. And we also have a very strong design informatics group who work in collaboration with those in College of Arts, education, and also with law. Just a brief word about some of the CDTs. I won't go into any detail here because there are separate sessions about the CDTs, but for those of you who couldn't or weren't planning to attend them but still interested, let me just say a few words. The CDT in biomedical innovation is an interdisciplinary research training in AI skills and kind of biomedical foundations. And the focus of the program is on application of AI skills in a biomedical context. So one of the key areas here is work placements and internships. There are a lot of leading industrial or clinical partners who co-create and co-supervise research projects in this CDT, focusing on real-world needs using the latest in AI methodologies. It's a generously funded CDT with budgets to attend conferences, workshops, and to make international visits. And an extensive training and support network, lots of training programs and courses are part of this CDT with integrated study. It's also particularly set up to accept students who may not necessarily have a strong background in computer science or mathematics, but perhaps come from a medical background or a biology background. The AI CDT in designing responsible natural language processing systems, again, is a 4-year PhD with integrated study. This is one of the fairly significant research strengths within informatics, and there's quite a large group of potential supervisors in this area. Offers research training in fundamental skills for advanced research in natural language processing, involving machine learning, statistics, and algorithms. And students in NLP will be working with faculty experts in speech, linguistics, cognitive science, as well as other areas such as design informatics. Again, there are work placements and internships. This CDT has 71 partners, including DeepMind, Microsoft Research, Cohere, NatWest, and others as they're listed on this slide here. And they have funding to assist students to visit these international research groups and labs and to have placements with those groups and also with government partners too. There are courses as part of the program. If you're interested, you'll just get more detail from that in the talk that's associated with the CDT. CDT in Dependable and Deployable AI for Robotics, again, is a 4-year PhD program with integrated study, comprising technical training courses, there are core courses involving 4 modules that cut right across the discipline. And then there are, on top of that, electives that you can choose. And there are in excess of 50 courses that you could pick your electives from. The training includes software bootcamp, hackathons, competitions, and other kinds of challenges. And there is an innovative training program funding for that, and covering a variety of soft skills and presentational skills. There are industry internships. Again, this is, you can see, is now a common theme running through these CDTs, involving internships and placements, which will often be international placements. We have a new CDT in quantum informatics. Again, a 4-year PhD with integrated study. And this provides advanced training in the structure and behavior of quantum hardware and software and the applications of quantum systems. That program kind of spans the computer science part of quantum informatics, and as well as mathematics and physics. And the aim is to use quantum technology in a way that is integratable and interoperable and has some impact. And it's not just focused on developing quantum hardware. So it's more about how we move on from just making a simple quantum system to begin with, and to actually use it and program it and make use of it. So the first year has a mix of talk courses to establish a base level of quantum knowledge. It may be that not everybody joining the course has that same background, so it's important in year 1 to bring everybody up to the same level. And we also have a CDT in machine learning systems. This is again a 4-year PhD with integrated study. And this is really about working in an area where there is some cross-fertilization between machine learning and AI and systems. So that could be either about understanding and creating some kind of innovation in the field of systems that support machine learning, or it could be in working out how to make those systems faster. Again, there are work placements and internships, and this is an integral part of the program, a key part of the program to get research students to work closely with those in industry who are innovating in this field, and as well as internship training to assist with that. So here's a list of the virtual open days that we have for these CDT sessions. Please go along to any that are of interest to you. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my session.